I've been in ministry for about 14 years now. And in that time, I've seen so many different things. I've experienced so many things, and I've changed a ton. I mean, the person that I was 14 years ago when I was a youth pastor in Pueblo, Colorado, standing in front of 6 kids, scared out of my mind because I didn't know what I was talking about or what I was doing, to now where I've arrived and I obviously know everything there is to know. But I mean, clearly that's a joke. I hope you know that's a joke. But I mean, I have changed. I've had all these experiences over time, and I've just evolved into a different person. And I've changed in how I view God. I've changed in how I view myself. I changed how I view church and ministry. All this stuff has changed. And I credit that to something that my pastor up there used to say all the time: stay teachable. Stay teachable, because none of us know everything about everything. Even though a lot of us like to pretend that we do, we don't. And so I always wanted to be open to hear what other people have to say about any given topic, whether it's spiritual things or ministry or just life in general. And I might go into that conversation thinking that I was going to disagree with everything that person said, but maybe there's a little nugget in there that could awaken something on the inside of me. Or maybe they just have a totally different view of looking at things, and it planted a seed in me that began to grow later. I don't know if you've ever experienced that, where maybe somebody said something years ago and you weren't quite ready to hear it, but it was always in the back of your mind. And then as time goes on, you refer back to that. I don't know if you've experienced that, but I've experienced that a ton. But if we remain teachable, it will keep us from closing doors for growth. But the second you say, I already know that, you're stunting the growth in your life. And that's what I see in churches all the time. I don't want to generalize and say this is every single church, but a lot of times what we see in churches are social clubs or people that are just showing up, listening to a message, and checking that church box off and then going home, and life is exactly the same. We're not leaving church with a greater expectation on life. We're not inspired. We're just kind of going through the motions a lot of times. And sometimes that's fine, but don't you think there's more to it than that? I mean, we're all talking about doing all these incredible things and changing the world and getting into the community and doing all this stuff. But are we still getting angry in traffic? Can we walk outside when it's hot and not complain about the heat? Can we stop being so negative all the time? Let's start there. Let's change our world before we go out and change the world. I mean, so many times we're just projecting ourselves into this future place and wanting to do all these great things when we're not even experiencing it for itself. Don't you think there's more to all this than that? How are we supposed to allow or give people the opportunity to experience heaven on earth when we're not experiencing heaven on earth either? I mean, whenever I walk into church, I still see people that are just as negative and judgmental and depressed and anxious as the rest of the world, if not worse. So maybe we need to go back to the basics of everything and start over and say, maybe we're more powerful than we realize. Maybe we're more loved than we realized. And maybe God's created us for more than just going through the motions. So that's what we're going to talk about today. There is a famous quote from Henry Ford that says, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. I think when a lot of us hear that quote, we're thinking of big time stuff about starting a new job and I can do it, and or quitting a career that you've been in for 15 years, or moving across the country. And if you think you can do it, and you're just going to go get it done. But I think it also works with the little things in our life. Like I was saying, a lot of us are getting irritated at little things, or we're getting upset with the kids over them acting like kids act, or just a number of different things. We're not even able to live life normally. Forget about all that big time stuff. Don't forget about it, but let's focus on the little things right now. I like in John 14, he says, most assuredly, I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. And greater works than these he will do, because I go to my Father. Everyone wants to do the greater works. He says that Jesus did some cool stuff, and he says I can do greater works. So let's get on with the greater works. But I say, let's pause that for a second, time out, and we'll worry about the greater works later. Are you doing the works that he did? And I don't know about you, but I used to think the word works was like a cuss word. If you're telling me to do something, I don't think so. But we clearly need to do some things. This stuff doesn't just happen on its own. So I'm not saying we're working to earn anything. I'm saying we're using what we've been given, and it produces works in our life. I actually had people come to our church who are all into the grace message or the gospel of grace, and they would hear me talking about doing things, putting your hand to something, and they say, well, now you sound legalistic. You're telling me to do something? It is finished. And I'm like, okay, you're clearly not getting it, and your life kind of sucks right now. So maybe you should do something about it, because grace empowers us to live a better life. It doesn't make us lazy. That's what gives grace a bad name. Grace empowers us to live on earth as it is in heaven. So let's do that. I mean, Jesus says, go lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. They're not going to recover automatically necessarily. He says, go and lay hands on the sick and they shall recover. Or everything you put your hands to is blessed. Go do something. I've given you everything you need for life and godliness. It's a gift. Now just go use it. It has nothing to do with eternity. It has everything to do with right now, experiencing heaven on earth. So I like to just make it real simple, rein it back in. There was a story about legendary coach of the Green Bay Packers, Vince Lombardi, and the team had not been doing well. So he brings them into the locker room and he said, we need to rebuild our whole everything. We're going to start from the basics. And he held up a football and he said, gentlemen, this is a football. And he just walked them all the way through, rebuilt it. And then they went on to win many, many championships. And now they're the greatest NFL team in the nation. So anyway, that's what we need to do. We jump too far ahead in trying to make all these massive changes, where it's the little things that build on one another that really make all the differences. And before too long, just taking these little steps, soon those steps will get bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you'll look back and you won't even realize how far you've come. But I'm telling you, over the last 14 years, I'm a completely different person. But our works are important. Not important to please God or earn anything from God, but they are a gauge of where we are in our belief system. Look at your actions. If you don't like what you're doing, change what's in your heart, because as he thinks in his heart, so is he. Or if you don't like the things that are coming out of your mouth, if you're speaking negatively, or if you're saying hurtful things to people, if you're saying hurtful things to yourself, change what's in your heart. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. Maybe we need to search our hearts a little bit and weed some things out. That's what this show is about. Brainwashing. Let's wash our brains of stuff. Don't keep going down the same path just because that's all you've ever known. Look at what you believe. Why do you believe it? Question it. It's okay to question things. If you're in a place that doesn't allow questioning, I hate to break it to you, you are in a cult. Questions are what shape our lives. Questions change everything. Why do you believe what you believe? Why do you pray this way? Why do you act this way? Why do we do everything the way that we do it? Why? And then talk to people that maybe think differently than you. Just stay teachable and things will begin to change. Your belief system will begin to change. But if you don't like where your life is, you have this superpower given to you by God to change your life. He says, life and death are set before you. Choose life. Choose life. I've always thought that was interesting because it doesn't say choose one or the other. Life and death are set before you. Choose one. No, choose life. Because if we're not intentional as we're walking through this life, we're going to default to death. I don't mean death. I mean just no life at all. Just going through the motions, the rat race. No, life and death are set before you. Actively pursue life more abundantly because it's all around you. But our belief systems block us from seeing it. Maybe you have a good understanding and you're well on your way, and things that you've known and experiences you've had in the past were just amazing. But for whatever reason, right now, you're just going through it. You're stressed out. You're depressed. Whatever it might be, your attitude is in the gutter. What can you do now? Well, in Mark 16, Jesus says, "He who believes and is baptized will be saved." Now, this word here for baptize, people have, okay, now we have to water baptize you if you want to get to heaven someday. That's not at all what this is talking about here. Believe and be baptized and you will be saved. So believe actually in Greek means to immerse, not immerse yourself in a water baptism, but to immerse yourself in what you believe. Believe and be immersed and you will be saved. Saved, sozo, that means complete. It means whole, healed, prosperous. Everything you need for life and godliness is included in this word sozo. So you believe, you immerse yourself in what you believe, and you will begin to experience everything that salvation has provided for you. This isn't about getting to heaven. It's about experiencing heaven on earth. This is about chipping away at that, working out your salvation with fear and trembling, because this is new ground. There's fear, not I'm afraid type fear, but this awe-inspiring excitement going through life because we are experiencing something we've never experienced before. That's good news. But we have to believe, immerse ourselves, and then we'll start to experience those things. I think most of us believe, you might believe all the right stuff, but are you immersed in it? Is it a thought? And you go from topic to topic and you have all the right information. You might say the right words, but you're not immersed in it. I think that's where we miss it a lot of times. And when I say immerse, I don't mean stick your face in a Bible and constantly just be in study or prayer all the time. What I'm saying is have a conscious awareness of God's presence in your life. What does he say about you? If you're going through a stressful time, man, just start giving thanks for that peace that surpasses all understanding and that joy unspeakable, and just repeat it over and over and over. That's what I mean about immersing yourself. To immerse yourself means you are just consumed by this idea. But if we're not consumed by it, why are we complaining whenever things aren't working out? When we're just dipping our toes in the water, man, we need to jump in the deep end, dive head first into it and say, I'm going to do everything I can to immerse myself in this truth. And then that salvation will start to work its way out. That joy will start to work its way out. That peace that surpasses all understanding will work its way out. It might be a little process. It might be immediate. You might just need a reminder, be stirred up by way of remembrance. But as you dive in to that, things will change. They can't not change, because as he thinks in his heart, so is he. In the last couple episodes, I talked about Hebrews 11:1. It says, faith perceiving as real fact what's not revealed to the senses. Faith causes us to see past what our senses are telling us. What you see, taste, touch, smell, and hear. So when you immerse yourself in what you believe, Get all those senses involved, and don't let whatever's screaming at you, whatever problem you're going through, run the show. I'm not telling you to ignore the problem. I'm telling you to magnify the truth over your problem. So what do? If you're going through a stressful situation, you start to speak the truth over your situation. You start to speak the truth over you that, okay, yes, I'm experiencing some anxiety right now, but I have that peace. I have that joy. I have that love. I have that patience. I have that self-control. I have the ability to look at this with more clarity. I'm speaking that. Now, so that's one of my senses. What about what you see? Hang pictures up of what life would look like if this problem were solved, or write things down and read it over and over. So you're looking at it, you're saying it out loud to yourself. You're going to feel like a crazy person. Be a crazy person. It's better be a crazy person who has joy unspeakable than a crazy person that's depressed and running themselves batty because of life. I'd much rather be this type of crazy than that type of crazy. Just get your senses involved in it. Maybe light a candle or something. I mean, a lot of people don't like candles anymore. Get a diffuser or something. I don't know. Get something where you're smelling it. Every time I smell this certain smell, it's bringing my thoughts right back to it. I like to carry a card in my pocket, and whenever I put my hand in my pocket, I feel that card, and it causes my thoughts to go back to whatever I'm believing for at that moment, whether it's joy or peace or something big in my life. It causes me to go back and remember all these things rather than allowing life to knock me upside the head. So get all your senses involved, immerse yourself in it, be intentional with these things, and it will change. Your circumstances might not change right away, but the way you look at your circumstances will change very quickly. I promise. And if you're having a hard time doing that on your own, get friends together that are going to help pull you out of this mess. I've literally had people one time at the church. I was just in this negative place. And this lady that used to go there, she noticed, and she literally grabbed me by the shoulders and shook me and says, "Snap out of it. What is going on?" And it's like, oh, you're right. I didn't even realize that I had been going down this spiral, and she grabbed me by the shoulders, literally shook me, and it snapped me out of it. And the problems were still there, and I still had to move through the emotions. But I had someone in my life that saw that I was going through something, literally shook me, and I was able to at least start the process of immersing myself in the things that I say I believe. A lot of us, we say all the right stuff. We sing songs about how great God is and the power that we possess, and about healing and all of it. We sing that right before a message we hear at church, and then maybe you go to a great church like our church was. Perfect theology. It was amazing. And and then you leave, and there's you left it there. Do you believe the things that you were singing? Do you believe the things that you were learning? Immerse yourself in it. Don't drive out of the parking lot. Don't turn this off and start getting mad at traffic or start complaining about every little thing that's going on in your life. Don't ignore the problem, but magnify the truth over your problem. 1 John 1:8 says, "If we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us." That word sin is highly misunderstood, in my opinion. We like to think of sin as all the little bad things that we do. You say a cuss word, or you drink, you smoke, you chew, and you hang with the girls that do. And it's all this performance stuff. But that's not what sin is. Sin is missing the mark. It's not what you're doing wrong. It's what you're not doing right. Does that make sense? I don't know if that made sense. It's the eternal life. It's the kingdom life on earth as it is in heaven that you're missing out on. That's sin. So when we're not experiencing the life that God has for us, we're missing it, and that's sin. So maybe for some people, they drink, they smoke, they say bad words, whatever. We get hung up, we major on the minors. That's not at all what that's talking about. It's missing out on something. Don't you know how good God is? Don't you know how powerful you are? Don't you know that you're made on purpose for a purpose? Don't you know these things? Then why aren't you walking it out? Because if you're not, that's sin. And he says, if we say we have no sin, if we say we got it all together, we deceive ourselves and the truth is not in us. Don't deny what you're going through. Don't deny that you're missing it. Don't deny that you're feeling sad or depressed or anxious. Don't deny that. Magnify the truth over it. Because when you're standing on top of the mountain that you've been facing, you can't see the mountain anymore. You're so far above it, it ain't no thing anymore. It's under your feet. That's an amazing place to be. I think Galatians 5 communicates this well. It talks about the works of the flesh, and the flesh would be the way I understand it. I mean, people probably have a better explanation of it than I do, but it's just when we're living reactionary lives, whatever our senses are telling us, that's flesh. But then the spirit comes from within. So working by the flesh, walking by the flesh is reactionary, outside in. The fruit of the Spirit comes from within. Okay, so that's what it's talking about here in Galatians 5. It says, I say then, walk in the Spirit, and you shall not fulfill the lusts of the flesh. For the flesh lusts against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. And these are contrary to one another, so that you do not do the things that you wish. But if you're led by the Spirit, you're not under the law. Now the works of the flesh are evident, which are adultery, fornication, uncleanness, lewdness, idolatry, sorcery, hatred, contentions, jealousies, outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, dissensions, heresies, envy, murders, drunkenness, revelries, and the like, of which I tell you beforehand, just as I told you in time past, that those who practice such things will not inherit the kingdom of God. That's a really interesting passage because people like to pluck certain things out of there. They'll pluck adultery or fornication and drunkenness and just, if you are doing any of these things, you're not going to heaven when you die. They forget to mention maybe envy or outbursts of wrath, selfish ambitions, things that all of us do on a fairly regular basis. We don't mention those things. Plus, when you inherit something, when do you inherit something? It says you will not inherit the kingdom of God. When do you inherit something? After you die or after someone else dies? After someone else dies. The inheritance isn't something that you experience after you die. It's something that you get to experience now because the cross worked. All this is just talking about, if you look at what you're doing, look at what your life looks like. If you don't like what you see and you want to partake of or inherit the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, take a look at it. Where are you at? Are you working in the flesh, or are you operating from the Spirit? And it's the works of the flesh and the fruit of the Spirit. Why is it works of the flesh and fruit of the Spirit? Fruit grows effortlessly. Work, that takes work. Because you're not created for that. You're created for the Spirit. You're not created for the works of the flesh. So when our life is all over the place, like it's listing there, it's contrary to what you're created for. But it goes on to say, but the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such there is no law. And those who are Christ's have crucified the flesh with its passions and desires. If we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. So your spirit, it's perfect. That's where real life comes from, is from your spirit. It says, if we live in the Spirit, let us also walk in the Spirit. There's things we need to do and walk these things out. Put your hand to something. Get your senses involved. Say, I am everything that God says I am. He is everything He says He is. He's provided a life that requires a supernatural explanation. And so the world will look at you and say, what is it that he has or she has that I don't have. And you get to say, you have everything that I have. You just don't know it. Let me help you. We get to talk to one another and say, you know what? You're just as righteous as me. You're just as holy and blameless as me. You're just as blessed and prosperous and successful as me. You just don't know it yet. So let me help pull that out. That's the ministry of reconciliation, telling people that they're reconciled to the Father. They don't have to do anything. They already are. Now, believe it and immerse yourself in it. Believe and be baptized, and then the experiences will start to take place. That's good news. That's easy. That's easy stuff. We're not trying to go out there and save the world. We're trying to get the world to understand that they already are, that they're already in possession of everything they need for life and godliness. They just don't know it. And as long as I'm so distracted by the world, I'm not in a position to share that with them, that the love that God has for them. I'm not in a place to help them experience all the amazing things that I've been able to experience. So that's what all this is about. Let's take a second and stop trying to make all these great big changes right now. Forget the greater things right now. Focus on the little things. Focus on who you are, whose you are. The greater things will start to take place effortlessly. You're not working to earn anything. You're looking at your works as a gauge of where you are. So if you don't like where you are, you have the opportunity to change it right now. That's awesome, because so many people are letting life just knock them around. They're letting whatever happens, they're just going whichever way the wind blows them, and you don't have to. They don't have to. But we don't have to live that way. We can start convincing ourselves that what the Father says about us is true, that you're everything that he says you are. So let's change the way we think. Let's start speaking these things out. Your words are powerful. Not only does it change you, it changes the world around you. So it changes how you go through life, and then it changes how life comes at you. And things will begin to change. You'll start to attract things differently. Life gets so much better when we just change our whole outlook on life. Out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So what you believe in the heart comes out of your mouth. But if you want to change your heart, it goes the other way too. You want to change what's in here? Start speaking it. Faith comes by hearing. So even if it's your own voice, you start speaking it, comes out there, boom, right back in there, and you just start saying it. And before you know it, you're convincing your heart. Your subconscious mind is changed. And then the things that you used to battle, you don't battle anymore.